Hey guys, happy Monday! You've just tuned into your favorite YouTube channel, Aquarius Rising Africa 2, and welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Really good to see all you beautiful people on marvelous Monday with beautiful Bryce. How are you, beautiful Bryce? Hello, Morné.
I'm wonderful. How are you guys?
Yeah,
Awesome.
really good. Really good. Life she's marching on, and winter she's here, but we shall keep warm. Along with, and there's Beam Me Up Scotty from Oz. So you must be a few hours ahead of us, Scotty. Also having winter there. I'm always complaining about winter, that's for sure. Hi, Christy. Nice to see you guys here. So today we are doing the final installment of the Emerald tablets. So we are number 7 today, and it's the 7 lords, which we know by now are the not chakras, guys, chakras. Please don't ever say chakras.
Well, I will say this.
Chakras.
So when you look at these Sanskrit words, so my teacher in India, his name is Sharat, but the last part of the T at the end is spelled TH. So people go Sharath. What you guys have to remember is that Sanskrit has its own verbal rules, right? Like you know how in English the CH makes the ch sound and the TH makes the th sound? That's not the same with like Hindi or Sanskrit. So like people in the South, like they'll say hatha yoga. It's not hatha yoga, hatha yoga, because it's Sanskrit. And actual Sanskrit is drawn with characters, right?
Mhm.
But they'll use, if you're an English speaker, they'll use English letters to the best of their ability to help you pronounce it. So yeah, that's a Sanskrit word. So yeah, and we're going to be looking at, and actually the most powerful part of the 7 lords, Emerald Tablet number 7, is the whole idea about you can't know life unless you know death, and that's one of the most beautiful experiences beyond the 7 lords.
Isn't that sorry, just to chime in here. When we talk about, you won't know life until you know death, and that's also like the dark night of the soul, and that's often for those of you who understand the tarot cards. The death card in the major arcana. There's the death card, and although most people are terrified of it when that card ever comes out, and that's really not physical death. There are other cards and how they're placed that depict that,
Yep.
but that is really about
Musical.
changing. Literally, the death of one situation brings birth to another. So, transmutation, alchemy,
Yeah.
darkest before the dawn.
Well, that's why I love the Tower card too in the tarot deck. A lot of people get scared when they see the Tower card, but you really can't. As humans, sometimes I think we want change without actually having to change. Does that make sense? So, like with I see this, when we talk about, especially with the 7 lords, we're looking about the makeup of the human body and the human existence. It really, there's so much within the Emerald Tablets that mirror other disciplines as well, especially the Yoga Sutras. And the second Yoga Sutra of the Yoga Sutras is Yoga Chittavritti Nirodha, which is one of the most important sutras in all the sutras. If you want to really understand that, you understand the whole philosophy. So yoga, chittam is the mind, vritti is thoughts, nirodha. And so what that nirodha is nothingness. So what we learn is that, and we see this in the Emerald Tablets before this, is that our thoughts, what we believe, starts to kind of generate vibrationally out of us and within us. The body is also in yoga considered the mind field. It's the mind field it's the field of the creation from the mind. And so we have these patterns that we create within us. Some of them we're aware of, some of them we're not. And we start to actually, like the Tower card, we actually start to kind of change those patterns. There has to almost be a destruction, a removal of those patterns in order for new patterns. That Tower card, that Death card.
Yeah.
It's not saying that
It's if we think about also like, especially after having had numerous interviews with Andy Bond. And I want to say to you guys, we haven't had Andy on the show for a while, but she'll be back. But she's also a very, very little powerful overcomer. And after, part of her healing was she went to India as well and studied with like amazing, amazing, incredible masters and stuff. And what she also studied was Sanskrit
Mhm.
and understanding that the body, as they put it, the body is a resonance chamber. We know that we created from sound, frequency, and vibration. That is something that we all understand, right? So, your sound, frequency, and vibration, according to your life and your soul's experience, resonates in its own harmonic way.
Yeah.
It has its own harmonic sound, symbol, whatever you want to call it, right? And that is your unique fingerprint. So, whatever your experience of life is going to obviously be broadcast. Then, as you say, as we then, because as souls, right, we really want to expand. We come here to grow and expand. So, we're going to choose experiences that are going to rub us up the wrong way, or is it the right way?
Yep.
That's going to, and like very often, in fact, all the time, we like before that tower moment, right? And the tower moment would be like, let's say, the car accident, or when you get sick, or when your spouse wants a divorce, or when your child decides that they want to run away because they can't bear you anymore.
Let her
That would
pick.
be
Lose your
our
job.
moment.
Big events.
Right.
Yeah.
So there would be plenty of clues running up to that in your life, plenty of clues. But being humans, we often don't understand where we're at in our evolutionary journey right now. We often don't understand the clues because very often they're very subtle and we're not taught to read the subtle signs of life, right? We've been taught that there's a pill for every ailment. So most of us don't understand that our bodies are designed to heal ourselves. So we'll rather go to doctors and all sorts of things and have things cut out and implanted and done whatever without realizing the intelligence of our body, you know, and stuff like that. So when your higher self or God or source or spirit, divine creator, is trying to get a message through to you and you keep ignoring it, right? Like keep pressing that snooze button. The intention with which the message is that they're trying to send through to you is going to get stronger and more forceful. And if the more you keep ignoring it, suddenly, boom, one day there it is, and and you know what's crazy? How many people still ignore it after that?
Well, and that's, it's funny you were saying that. When I was waiting backstage, I was watching, I love these like YouTube, Instagram shorts because they're usually funny, but sometimes an emotional one will pop up. And it was one with a clip with Morgan Freeman, actually. And he was talking about patience. He was talking to another person. He said, when you ask God for patience, does God ever just give you patience? No. God will then give you opportunities to develop patience, right?
Yeah,
So when you
exactly.
ask for when you ask to change, when you want to go into the world in a different way, there's going to have to be the friction, right? The transmutation, which it's not just going to be like bippity boppity boo, all of a sudden everything has changed for you. No, you are that. And that's one thing I think that is just so apparent throughout all of these different tablets, is that the whole main character of the Emerald tablets is you are that magnetic magical being that actually is the person that's the conductor, you are the judge, the jury, the defendant, the prosecutor. You are the musician. It's all you. And so
Exactly.
there's no, that's why I keep saying no one's coming to save you, like in the macro and in the micro. And that is, I always want to tell people, like, that's not bad news that someone's coming to save you. That's actually the best news ever, because it is your privilege, because that's how powerful you are. When you start to work on yourself and you start to slowly shift those repetitive patterns of thought that are keeping you in a certain vibratory level, and you start to make that shift and change. Yes, it's painful. Yes, people will fall away from you. Yes, people will things will change your life, but you are the one making, you are that cook in that kitchen creating it. You are that consciousness that is able to do that. So therefore, God's not going to send you in an army, because you are the army. Right. And so you're put here. And that's what Mr. Fox always says. He always says, we come here to refine our souls. So you think about refining. I love saying that we're refining our souls. So we're asking for opportunities, that in a human body aren't that comfortable, because it forces us to like look at ourselves and refine our soul. And it's funny, Mr. Fox has said that the law of one has said many times that we are either the Cassiopeians, he can correct that, but that when we are creating our soul contracts to come here, when we're just in spirit form and we're not in body form, we see our lives in these existences so fast that we want to cram so much stuff in. We're like, we want to do this, we want to have this opportunity. And sometimes our advisors have to be like, hold on there, Tiger. You got to pull back here a little bit, because you're forgetting that once you get there, you're going to have a nervous system, and it's not going to be, because we just want to get it all done. We're like, you know what? Let's work on abandonment. Let's work on betrayal. Let's have this happen, that happen. And the advisor's like, let's just pick one of these things on the list, because it's going to be too much. If not, so when we think about that from that perspective in a spiritual form, when these, I was one of my favorite quotes, and I say it, I understand if you're a victim of a crime, yes, go and do what you need to do for whatever reasons. But when things, they don't happen to you, they happen for you. They happen for you in order for you to understand how to transmute, how to take your power back, how to correct something in yourself. And that's, because and that's what he said in the tablet before this. He's very clear that when you are on the path, when you are figuring this out, there are going to be more obstacles. My friend Harmony, who's an Ashtanga teacher too, she always says, you practice Ashtanga yoga, you're asking for your karma to be cranked up a little bit, because you're actually taking on a practice, that's going to allow this work to be, all karma is, guys. I think we have a really poor understanding of karma in the West. We think it's all like bad karma. Karma is just action and reaction. It's just cause and effect. That's all it is. The fact that my alarm clock went off this morning is the karma of that. My alarm clock going off this morning meant that I could be here with you guys doing the show, right? That's the karma of it, right? So it's just cause and effect. So your karma really is just your work in this life. So anyway, yeah. So today, last week we finished up thoughts commentary, and so our thoughts, the actual tablet. And today I was going to read through Doriel's commentary. Now, before we get into that, I know we were saying backstage that people were having a hard time finding this copy. So again, it's Doriel, before we get into it, just so I don't forget. So this is what I've been using. The reason why I'm using Doriel's commentary is because he seems to be one of the foremost scholars, I guess you would say, on the Emerald Tablets. Billy Carson talks about him a lot, and if Billy Carson respects him, then awesome. But as far as, so for me here in America, if you're an American or if you're in the Western world, you can typically find the Emerald Tablets on any type of platform that sells books. So, and sorry, they're doing yard work. So if you guys hear a blower, that's what it is. Can you hear it? The blower? Okay. A little bit. Okay, sorry. Love being in a city.
It sounds like chimes. And
oh, I'm probably gonna get closer because they're about to come right by the window and blow the leaves. But it's always something in a city. So if you are in a Western country and you're looking for these commentaries, if in America, I know people don't like Amazon, but right now we use what we can. Amazon has multiple copies of the Emerald Tablets. You can find multiple different commentaries. I'm a lover of this kind of stuff, so I usually buy multiple. I have multiple commentaries on the Yoga Sutras, so I like seeing what other people have to say. Because different people are going to have different perspectives. So, or, if you're in another country, if you can find a bookseller that will have, but the tablets themselves, without the commentary, guys, you can just find the PDF of those online for free. So you don't even have to, if you don't want the commentary, you can just pull up the PDF of the Emerald Tablets totally for free. So I'm a nerd, and I like, and this for me was like, let's see. How expensive would they have the price on it? It was $16.95. I paid $16.95 for this. So it's not that expensive, but if money's tight, you can find this stuff on the PDFs online.
But I just wanted to say, Doriel's translation, you can find for free as a PDF online. Just search Emerald Tablets, Doriel PDF, and you will find it. I found it, the free PDF for this tablet that we're using right now.
Awesome.
So you can find it for free.
Awesome. Perfect. I'll say, Eric, the term New Age is the same as conspiracy theorist. It was created by the 3-letter agency to try to dissuade you from looking into this stuff, just like they created the term conspiracy theorist. So if I were you, Eric, I would look and see where you have been programmed by the 3-letter agency, just like they've programmed people to think we're weird by the term conspiracy theorist. So I would just look into that, Eric, before you go making those that judgment. Judge not, lest ye be judged, Eric. Judge not, lest ye be judged. But the great.
You know what I want to say? You know what I also want to just say about the whole New Age topic, which I find very interesting as well, because I'm often accused of being New Age.
Same.
Yet if you look at the work I teach, and I've always taught, it's energy. It's what created the world. It's what created Jesus. It's what created you. It's what created everything, right? So it really is about understanding that. So there's absolutely nothing New Age about that.
No.
But what I want to say as well is that okay, Eric is convinced. It's fine, Eric. You're entitled to feel it's your truth, no problem. But I just want to say this is that if we go back to biblical times, right, and we go back to the times of Jesus, and even prior to that, we must understand that times then were very, very different.
Yeah.
So people were not nearly as conscious that we are multidimensional beings. So, what worked for people 2,500 years ago does not necessarily work for people anymore. So, and I think what a lot of people forget is that a lot of the information that we speak about is absolutely from source God, right? That is beyond time and space. But we're using it in a modern day world. So for the first time, let's just look at the past 20 years. Never before have people actually introspected. For the first time, we as humans are aware that we are multidimensional. We are aware that there's a lot of information that is submerged within our consciousness. So we are actually looking much deeper. And this is what Jesus taught us, people. Jesus said, the truth shall set you free. Seek, and ye shall find. So we become seekers. When Jesus says heaven is a place within, it is. It is a place that you understand that exactly what Jesus was doing and saying is available to all of humanity. Yeah. But the way that we get there is to stop judging and being horrible and nasty and accusatory. Exactly the things Christianity teaches us not to be.
Yeah, that's why Christianity is the most violent religion in the world. Statistically, Christianity is the most violent religion in the world. Yeah.
So when we take that and we really understand what Jesus was trying to say, and this is why when I say no one is coming to save you, you are yet to save yourself. Jesus came to teach you how to resurrect your consciousness so that you too are able to be a vessel for Christ consciously. Right. You too can perform the miracles on animals and children and people that he did when you stand in alignment with Christ or God, right? So there's nothing new age about this. And I think this is where people need to adjust their thinking, because if people go with that new age narrative, you miss out on so much of what we're trying to say. We're bringing forth ancient principles in a modern day world where people are searching deeper. We're becoming seekers. Doesn't mean we want to overtake God's throne. It just means that we are aware that we are co-creators with God. We are aware that we are created in the image of God. And if I am created in the image of God, wow, that makes me quite phenomenal. And if you are created in the image of God, wow, that makes you quite phenomenal. So rather than let's talk about all of these things that are and aren't or couldn't be, let's go and seek within, meditate, pray, do the stuff we need to do in order to enlighten your consciousness so that you too can understand that none of this that we talk about is evil.
No.
It's
Well,
really
actually,
just a
I'm going to ask
misperception of
if
what people say.
you guys don't mind, Eric, I see you say New Age is a doctrine of devil. So that's a pretty bold statement to make, especially since New Age was created, that term was created by the three-letter agency. So I'm going to say, if you believe that, Eric, can you please send us proof of this? Can you please actually send us, go through the Yoga Sutras, go through these texts and send us where you see
Okay, Bryce, I'm gonna call this off because
Okay.
it's pointless having an argument with someone in the chat because obviously he's made up his mind, and that's fine. If you wanna, if you know, that's all. There's,
I just
you know,
want people to just
you're entitled to your opinion, but then I do want to
judge
say
people,
this is
yeah.
probably the wrong channel for you.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
I'm like mixing up doctrines, mixing up stuff. Everything is mixed on this
Bye
walk. We're all
bye.
in it together. It's just like, if you really don't understand, our channel is all about bringing everything together. We
We're
can't deny one.
non-denominational. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't deny
Yeah.
one truth and then accept the other. It's no.
Especially since the Bible itself has been edited 55 times. Most of it was made up by King James. You can actually find this evidence if you want to research it. You can find it. King James was a 33rd degree master Mason. The Freemasons also wrote the Bible with him. All this evidence is, you can find this stuff online, guys. So you need to have actual evidence to back what you're saying. You know, when it comes to yoga, if you just read the Yoga Sutras, you'll see that Patanjali himself was just nothing but a scientist, and he was just studying human behavior, right? And so I just, you know, that's what's sad to me is there's so much cruelty in our own community, or if you want to call it truthers, whatever. I see way more cruelty and evil than I do with the normies, because people are so judgmental. And that's the one thing Yahshua really said over and over again is stop judging. Stop it. Judge not, lest ye be judged. And I would want to say, in defense with Billy Carson, in my opinion, Eric, I think God loves Billy Carson just as much as God loves you, Eric. And Billy Carson is also a child of God, as are the three of us, as are everybody in the comment section. I'm really sorry if your religion has made you feel like that's not true, but it's such a more beautiful place to be when you realize we're all children of God. And opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. But if you are really, really, you know, and I will say the etymology of the word Christian means to steal the Christ. That's what the etymology of that word means. And they're literally stealing the Christ from you, because you are, that's how you were born. You're born with that salvation. You're born with that because you are a child of God. So, you know, anyway, so I guess we'll start with a commentary from Doriel. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So last week we finished up from Thoth, what Thoth was saying. So this is the commentary, guys. This is not Thoth's word. This is Doriel's commentary, just to make that clear. So we're going to start back at the beginning again. This tablet opens with the command to open your mind to the wisdom of Thoth. He says, and actually, if you study the works of Billy Carson, there's one video where he shows evidence where Thoth might have actually been a teacher of Yeshua and Magdalene, because Thoth was a real person that lived, a teacher. So that's interesting, right? And actually, I've already looked ahead to the tablet for next week, and we're going to see some crossover from the tablet from next week with some of the verses in the Bible, actually. And the Emerald tablets are older than the Bible. So
yeah,
that's why I say judge not, lest you be judged, because I know that's coming. Anyway, so the tablet opens with a command to open your mind to the wisdom of Thoth. He says that life is filled with obstacles that must be conquered. That's true. The light of the cosmic must be allowed to flow into and through the manifestation. The goal of all seeking must be oneness with the cosmic consciousness. Otherwise, there is limitation. Light is both finite and infinite because God, the cosmic consciousness, is light, and all things manifest and unmanifested are a part of God. Therefore, there can be no real separation, right? So there's no separation between you and God. No matter what people tell you, no matter what another human tries to tell you, there can be no separation from you and God, because God is light, and light is the creator of all things manifested. What do we say all the time? Darkness can't create anything, only the light can. So I'm going to reiterate those in the back. For those who didn't hear, this is really good news. This is common sense. There is nothing that can separate you from God's light, because you are a creation, and only the light can create, and God is the true light. Does that make sense? So don't let anybody tell you that you are separate from God, because that literally is gaslighting, and that's abuse, and literally common sense. You wouldn't be standing here on this earth right now, walking around, having a life, if you were not created by God to be here. Okay. So take that power back, right? Therefore, there can be no real separation. Even in the veils of darkness, which we call negative, the essence of light is hidden, ready to spring forth when the veil is surrendered. And I love that. Think about this, you guys. So even in darkness, the light is sitting there waiting. When you think about when you flick a light switch on, if we talk about modern times, modern electricity, when I come in the room and I flick the light switch on, it doesn't take that long. All of a sudden, within a nanosecond, the room has light. Within a nanosecond, there's light. Unless the bulb's burnt out. But you know what I'm saying? Like, the light travels so quickly that it doesn't take a while for it. It just immediately, the minute the veil of darkness is gone, boom, there's the light. Right?
Yeah. You know what? For me, that verse really, there's nothing that is not God on this world for me. You know, there's nothing in this creation that is not the creator. So even in darkness is what Chantelle loves. She says it always. Even darkness is the absence of light. So it's still light.
Yeah.
it's still light. And like you said, it's just like sitting there, pretending to be dark, or just like dimming a little bit.
It's taking on another frequency. We understand everything is energy, right? So in the absence of light, it takes on the polarization of itself. Because if we think about the planet and its duality to a point, right? Not that we get to a point where things are beyond duality, but mostly in 3D, we're understanding, we're learning duality and balance, right? Where we have to, if we look at, let's say, the astrology wheel, right? With the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 13th, so to speak, in the center. So it's finding that balance, that center place where everything finds its balance. So up until then, we're going to be like the seesaw, up and down, right? So it's all about understanding that everything is about a duality, and where there's an absence of something, there's generally more of it on the other side. And when we understand how law of, I want to say attraction, but law of correspondence actually works, because remember, you are emanating frequency every second of every day. And law of correspondence says it can't be another way, that you are going to correspond with that which is matching you.
Yeah.
Right? So when you are, let's say, an absolute martyr and an empath and takes on the world's pain, right? You haven't learned boundaries. Isn't it natural that you would correspond with someone who is very oftentimes the opposite of that? So that's when you're going to meet up with a narcissist. Because a narcissist is behaving towards others in exactly the way you are behaving towards yourself. So that's where we do the internal work, because we have to realize that our outer world is matching the inner world. And that's where most people have a problem processing that we can process it here, but And very often we get caught, and it's this backwards, forwards, and it's easier to blame the world around you. It's easier to look at your external situation and circumstances to actually make it about that. But at the end of the day, when we really understand, you are created from energy. God is energy, right? You are energy currently taking on a human form and shape in the third dimension, right? So when we get that and we understand life is spiritual before we become physical, so we can reverse a little bit out of where we're at just for a moment in time, we're going to start seeing things differently. And then we kind of reverse out of that and then move in the direction that works.
It's
That's
so
simple.
interesting, and also too with like narcissists. Angie and I, who was in the chat, we did a show on this last week. I had heard, and I'm not a huge fan of Teal Swan. I'll just give that disclaimer. But I never throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some things she says, and she had a 30-second video because I realized this was my issue. And this is how we start to learn how to course correct ourselves when we go back and learn how to heal our certain aspects of ourselves we don't even realize that we're doing. So she was saying that a lot of times what happens when you're coming from, if you had a childhood adult in your life who was unpredictable, let's just say, and I feel just the need to say this because hopefully this will help somebody else too, because it was a light bulb for me. So when you're an adult like myself and you attract narcissists constantly and they're constantly abusing you, what I realized from what Tilson was saying, she was like, what's happening is when you were a child, you had an unpredictable adult in your life, an unhinged adult. And when they were in a bad mood or something happened, you were the one as a child that paid for that. Now, as a child, you can't leave the situation, right? You are stuck where you are with your authority, your adult. So what you learn to do as a child to survive is to almost fawn over that person, to try to manage their emotions so that you can protect yourself. So what happens that pattern, as we spoke about the beginning, the patterns we create. So for someone like me, because when I was growing up, I grew up in what they call a narcissistic system. I had a high school, a private school that was extremely abusive, like extremely. There's lawsuits to this day against the school I went to in high school. They're extremely abusive. And I had some narcissism in my family from adults. And so as the child, I tried to fawn the adults to keep them happy so I didn't have to pay for that risk. I spotted that as a risk as a child. So what happens as an adult, now that I'm an adult, I have continued that pattern. So as an adult, if I see an unhinged person, I can just walk away if I want to, but the pattern has already been set to fawn that person to try to manage the risk in order to protect myself. But what ends up happening with a narcissist is inevitably they always end up bursting anyway. And so when I heard Teal Swan saying that, and so far I was like, thank you, God. Like I've been asking, where is that patterning in me that needs to be corrected? And when I heard that Teal Swan message, I was like, that's it. Okay, thank you, God. Now that I'm aware that's what I'm doing, and I told my boyfriend to like catch me doing this, I can now pull back and course correct that. I can go back and heal that childhood wound that was never, I can go back and protect that little girl that was never protected. Right? My therapist had me do that in trauma therapy. She would say, go back and protect the little girl that was never protected. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. It's always and I find that fascinating, right? So when things repetitively happen to you, it's like you're the common denominator. So the universe is trying to give you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to heal yourself, to figure it out and close that wound up and heal that wound up for good. And so sometimes it just takes that aha moment to be like, that's where the pattern is. So anyway, yeah, it's all, and that's what, I say here all the time, guys, you didn't come to planet Earth to be an accountant. That might be something you do while you're here, but that's not why you're here. You're not here to be an accountant. You're not here to be a soccer player. You're here to live, and you're here to experience life, and to, as I've said on my channel before, if we look at the soul having these experiences with all our lives, it's like going into an amusement park, right? You have the Batman ride, you have Splash Mountain, you have the haunted house, you have all these different simulated experiences that you can pick, and you know what you're getting into when you get in that line to take it. Well, it's the same as your lives, right? You go in as a soul and you're like, I think I picked the haunted house for this life. That's personally what I think I picked at the amusement park. I was like, let's go into the haunted house. So you get to pick these, this is all an experience. And Sri Swami Satchidananda does say that in his commentary of the Yoga Sutras. He says, once you realize that, like once you viscerally realize that you are a soul having a human experience, life becomes fun. Even the hard things become fun because it's different. It's not, it's temporary. And you're going, aha, okay. I quote Shanti a lot. I actually quoted Shanti in my class yesterday. What is this here to teach me? And when you can experience that differently, when you can perceive these obstacles in that perspective, it shifts the way you react to these obstacles, if that makes sense. And so it's so powerful. The shadow work stuff is just so incredibly powerful. But all right, so he goes on to say the infinite brain is lost to the comprehension of men who do not realize that everything is only separate manifestations of the one cosmic brain. So he's saying people are not going to understand this if they don't realize, if they believe in their separateness, right? So if people watching this truly believe they are separate, then they're not going to understand any of this. But the ones who actually know that separateness is an illusion, they're going to start to understand this, okay? All aspects of wisdom, either in God or man, are parts of the one wisdom manifesting through diversified channels. Law and order are the fundamental rules of all creation, either in God or man, for only in order is balance or equilibrium found. Thoth is again speaking of a far past time before Atlantis sank. His first introduction was through the dweller, but afterward he knew the key and was able to enter himself. How different was he from most seekers? I think I mentioned this last week. This I found comical when Doriel wrote this. How different is he from most seekers today? When given a key, he used it. And I laughed so hard because I know Shanti and Morné have been on this path. Like, it's people come in, they want change, they want you to help them, and so you say, well, this is what I'm teaching. This is no, but what can I do easier? Like, oh, I don't want to do, just change me, bippity boppity boo, change me, And Doriel's like, how different is that from today? When Thoth was, I'm going to read that again because that's comical. How different was he from most speakers today? When given a key, he used it.
That's probably the Ankh.
I know, right? He's like, okay, cool, I'll use this. We're like, no.
That's a cool key.
Massage me, make me feel better. Like, we're so I just love that. I thought that was hysterical when he wrote that. Like, us seekers, we want to change, but we're given the key to change. We're like, no thanks. So the Lord of cycles taught Thoth of the cycles beyond, so that he had knowledge of them and their workings, even though he could not penetrate through Chantelle to the higher cycles. Thoth promises to give of the wisdom he had learned. We are told that the lords are guides to man, and that this they are, for they teach him of those things which are beyond the scope of cosmic consciousness, and he thereby gains knowledge of the extension of the ayat. And remember, ayat is something that Doriel can't really translate. Something spiritually bigger, right? According to the ancient symbolism, wisdom was found in the flame. So again, we've talked about this over and over and over again in many of the tablets. Thoth describes the soul as what? The flame, right? We see this in the Yoga Sutras too. We see this across the board in a lot of different spiritual teachings, that the soul is the flame. Fire consuming from the unmanifest, existing for a time in the manifest, and then disappearing into the unmanifest, became the symbol of consciousness, which comes from the unmanifest, exists for a time in physical body, and then disappears back into the unmanifest. Thus, man is literally told to seek wisdom within his consciousness. The seven had come from beyond cycle time, which is limited, depending as it does upon radiation from the original infinite atom. The seven are part of the cosmic consciousness, which came forth from the ayad before we did, and were therefore formed while we were still part of the disorder. So they were being formed while we were still part of the chaos and disorder before we got put into order of our own manifested lives. They had developed past the man stage, Though when they occupied this cosmic cycle, they were like men. Consciousness in the unlimited is formless and flexible, assuming any form of which it has conception. Thoth is told that now he is free to travel the path until the final circle is completed, and that which was one again becomes one. The cosmic consciousness which occupies the cosmic cycles beyond us were formed in ordered sequence, not all at once. There are 7 of these beyond us, that is further out in space from the Iod. These lords, through manifesting here, are still connected to their own cosmic consciousness. Infinity is but part of the greater space, which is called transcendental. Then, when the Iod have completed their extensions into infinite space, they will join the torchbearer in transcendental space. Honestly, you guys, Thoth's writings on this make way more sense than Doriel's. I'm just going to say that. But, I do get what Doriel is saying here. I actually filmed yesterday for an upcoming video that's not on my channel yet. And I talked a lot about how, I'll just go ahead and say this, how, and I will say a lot of times, I'll say the soul, but what I'm really referring to is Atman. And there is a difference between the soul and Atman. But the soul is something that most people, especially because I understand a lot of people watching us right now are really new to this stuff. And so I want to make it as easy to comprehend as possible. The soul itself has like an essence of the experience of the human. And so if you look in the deeper Sanskrit writings, the Vedic text, like your friend, I also had to learn Sanskrit and study these texts in India for the years that I've studied in India. The Atman, however, is something that's actually deeper. It's the literal watcher, which if you study the Yoga Sutras, they refer to Prakriti as the watchable, Purusha as the watcher, Ishvara is God, or the sea and the seeable. And so Atman is that one part of you that really is the eternal. It's beyond the soul. I will say the soul again because that's the word most people use. So I understand what he's kind of saying in this sense of someone like myself who has a background in studying the Vedic text about what this. So I don't want anybody to freak out if this sounds complicated. Just go back. What do they say? KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Like just go back to the real foundational stuff of the Prakriti, the nature, the Purusha, because yeah, that's what Doriel is saying is coming from someone who's obviously studied this for a very long time. So I don't want to stress anybody out if this all sounds complicated. All right, let's see here. The spirals of time-space must be consciously known to one before he can move into them. When space and time are known, one has developed the power to move backwards and forward in space-time. Life and death exist only as comparative terms. Everything has its opposite. Remove one pole and the other cease to exist, right? Remove death and then life cease to exist anymore. In the plane of consciousness in which the higher cosmic consciousness of the 9 manifests, death is not known. Therefore, life is not known. There is only existence, immortal and eternal, without change or focal point of manifestation or loss of consciousness. When man conquers death, he also has mastered life, and to him both cease to exist. Right?
Yeah.
So
Consciousness.
So no wonder we want to come back here into these crazy human lives, right? We want to come back to experience life, because without the body, we don't know life, because without the body, we don't know death. It's so simple, but yet so So it's such a, so I mean, Alan Watts, if anybody's really super interested in taking a deep dive into Eastern philosophy, Alan Watts, he's no longer alive. He passed away a while ago, but he was one of the first Westerners to really, in our modern times, bring a really unique understanding to Eastern philosophy. And so I've read a lot of his books. Some of his books are kind of complicated. Some of them are not so much. But somebody asked him, he was kind of like the Ram Dass before Ram Dass was Ram Dass. Somebody asked him once, like, Alan, what's the big question? What's the point of life? That's the big question we always ask. Why are we here? What's the point of life? And Alan Watts was like, that's simple. The point of life is to be alive. It's to be alive. That's why you came. Again, you didn't come down here to be the best accountant in the world. You came down here to be alive, right? So anyway, the Lord of Nine in his own plane is timeless, for time is a result of the existence of materiality. The 9th cosmic consciousness does not manifest a materiality. The soul of the man is the flame which is bound to the mountain flesh. When we have become one with the Iod, the final completion of the infinite circle, materiality and life, which is one with death, will cease to exist. In the 8th cycle, also, life and death are one, and only external existence manifests. The 8th cosmic cycle is a cycle of life. For here, the infinite light is consecrated upon the disorder sent from the 9th cycle, breaking it into the divisions of kind, which are transmitted to the lower cosmic cycles. As disorder changed to order, it is the basis of everything. Light is master to all that exists. So when he talks about coming into disorder and order, as we yo-yo back and forth in our own conscious evolution, I kind of explain this to like my students a lot within like when we're unpacking ourselves in a spiritual way, and we're going through that refining of the soul. You know, I'm sure everybody watching right now, no matter where you are in the world, you probably have a closet that's like a junk closet where you just shove things in it you don't know what to do with, or like you have a junk drawer where you just shove things in you don't know what to do with, or maybe you decide you just want to reorganize and spring clean your whole house. Well, what do you do when you do that? I know what I do. I know what most people do. You take everything out, right? You just pull it all out. It creates a bigger mess in the process of trying to clean up your house. Yeah. So if you can think about that metaphor within the soul refining itself, if the soul or the Atman is going through its consciousness to try to refine itself, clean itself up, what's it going to do? It's going to do the same thing, right? It's going to pull everything out, kind of create a bigger mess to then reorganize and refine. And maybe in that cleaning out your house, you decide that when you move all your stuff around, you're going to move the dresser from one side of the room to the other side and move the furniture around because that's better organizing. And you're going to take half the stuff you've pulled out that you don't wear anymore, use it, or you're going to take it to Goodwill or something like that. So that mess has to happen first. That mess is the start of the disorder becoming order. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Like,
Certainly.
Yeah.
So, from chaos is, clarity is born.
Exactly.
It's really in those moments of, again, that duality. So how often, I mean, just, and again, I always like to look at how we apply these things. Words are easy, but, very often the application of the words is where a lot of us stumble. But it's good to go back to moments and just think about maybe the time that you were the most crazy and chaotic in your mind or your relationship or job or whatever it might be, and just suddenly in one moment someone said something, or you had an epiphany of sorts, or something changed and did a kind of like a 180 or whatever it might be. But there would be that moment of either quietness. Eckhart Tolle, for those of you guys who've read any of Eckhart Tolle's work, he will talk about him when he was in suicidal depression, literally, and had been for years, and having these incredible, having all these degrees, etc., behind his name, and studied and worked and blah, 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 blah. And anyway, and then he pretty much one morning, he was literally thinking of dying. And in that moment, suddenly, something happened. And for the first time, he heard the birds sing outside. He noticed the sun come through the crack of the curtains. He could hear people speaking. He awoke, and he speaks about it was like 6 months of bliss after that, where he really just suddenly woke up to life and woke up to living, and the enjoyment of actually living life and enjoying life and connecting, because the big problem is, that we don't connect. We've forgotten how to connect, truly connect. That's what I mean.
I listened to an Eckhart Tolle lecture once, and there was something he said that really stuck out to me. He was talking about stress and anxiety. And he used the example of like if you have to file for bankruptcy, which is not something I've ever done, but I know a lot of people have had to do that. And people get really upset, very emotional, very stressed about going into that law office and signing that paper for bankruptcy. And he said, but think about it. What are you actually doing? You're just going into an office and signing a piece of paper. That's all that it is. That's all you're doing. You just take it, you see it, and it kind of goes back to there's a form of Japanese meditation that I have used a lot in my life to try to bring myself, because I do have anxiety, to try to bring myself back into the now. And like, so let's say you are in the kitchen cutting carrots up for dinner and your mind's thinking about something you're stressed about. You bring your mind back to that activity. I'm cutting a carrot. I'm cutting right now. I'm cutting a carrot. I'm cutting a carrot. And if I'm in the shower and I'm washing my hair and my mind's going, okay, no, right now, all I'm doing right now is washing my hair. That's it. And it brings you to those simplistic moments of living. You know, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And sometimes you're right. I think that's the thing about what Eckhart Tolle is. Sometimes, you know, my friend Cindy says this all the time. If it wasn't for suffering, there would be no mystic. Because suffering, if we didn't have suffering, we wouldn't question. We wouldn't question. If everything was just hunky-dory all the time, we would never question anything. And so if it wasn't for suffering, there would be no mystic. And it's sometimes at that point of complete devastation that we do see that crack of light, right? We're forced to course correct. So yeah, absolutely. There's great Eckhart Tolle lectures out there, guys, if you ever want to just hear his talking points too. All right. So we're okay. So when the two parts of that united consciousness have become one, and other parts have become one with the one, thus become all, and it is possible to go forward into higher cosmic cycles. Thoth states clearly that all parts of his units are one when he says his goal is in the all things. Thoth uses a prayer to light, but always ends with a command. To the light, what we call form is formless, for only in the light does true reality exist. That's powerful. To the light, what we call form is formless, for only in light does true reality exist. Thoth gives freely of his wisdom so that others may tread the same path. He commands his followers to keep their faces towards the light, turning their thoughts outward, or excuse me, towards. Let me reread that. He commands his followers to ever keep their faces towards the light, turning their thoughts towards the master within. Thus they shall avoid the glittering promises of the material power promised by the dark brothers. Right? So he's saying, we ended with that last week too, and that's like Shanti always says, like the bedazzled bling of Lucifer, the fake light. Like he's saying, keep your thoughts on yourself, on working on yourself so you're not distracted by the promises of the dark brothers. And we see this a lot in our community of people where we get what they call future faking, right? There's a lot of future faking going on. Oh, just wait, the white hats are going to come in and create a whole new monetary system. Oh, just wait. That's keeping you distracted on something outside of yourself to bring you happiness and joy. You need to, and that's part of what peace is. There's a great quote from Buddhism, and I can't remember exactly, but paraphrasing, it's like, peace isn't being calm and happy when it's just good. Peace is being calm and happy also when it's bad, when your world is being able to maintain peace when the world around you is in turbulence, right? But then again, if we remember, as Eckhart Tolle was saying, he saw the light shine through. If we remember that this is just an experience for our soul to refine our soul, we're able then to keep focused on our own inner work. And I think more than ever, because we are so distracted by the macro. We're distracted by the politicians. We're distracted by all these things going on that's keeping our focus off of what truly matters, and that is your experience here on earth and your soul refining itself and working on itself. And I will say, do I personally wish that all these shenanigans were over right now? Yeah, but in the meantime, I have a really great life. In the meantime, I'm totally happy. I have a great boyfriend. I have an awesome dog. I got awesome friends like Morné and Shanti and all you guys watching right now. My life is pretty great. I'm pretty happy with everything. Do I wish again that the controllers were gone? Of course I do. But in the meantime, everything's great. I'm loving. You know, there's no other time in this existence am I going to be able to be a 40-year-old woman on YouTube right now talking to you guys. So that's what I'm focused on. Yeah. So it's that changing. I see so many people. It breaks my heart that like, well, when Nisara happens or when this happens. But what about right now? What about right now? Because you're alive right now. Tomorrow never comes, but right now you're alive.
Yeah, the only time is now.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really and that's truly where, again, speaking about Eckhart Tolle, that is where his most profound teachings are. He, of course, talks about as well the observer, the thoughts, and what you're talking about, the Atman, where you really are. You're not your thoughts. You're not your body. You're not anything else. but you become the observer, and you literally observe your interaction with yourself, which is very, very powerful when you can start doing that, because then that's how you start closing the gap between exactly that separation anxiety. Because really, at the end of the day, we are experiencing the illusion of separation. And note that the key word there is illusion, because it's really when we experience that separation, we feel the hellish vibrations that we do. Honestly, we think we're alone. We think we're not supported. We think that we're in deep dark, wherever it might be, you know. But at the end of the day, and that's what Eckhart Tolle also speaks about, is, and remember, the only time is now. Many of us live in the past, which creates regret or remorse or hankering onto old memories that we wish we could relive again or whatever. But invariably, that's what we do. And that, as I said, creates that regret or remorse. And then the future, we then live in the future, or we project into the future, which creates the anxiety. Because what if, because we're predicting the future on the past, right? Yeah. So when we really get to the place of being in this moment, in this second, in this now, do you have a roof over your head? Yes. Be grateful for that. Do you have air to breathe? Yes. Be grateful for that. Do you, obviously watching YouTube or whatever, you have a phone or you have data or whatever it is, be grateful to be connected. Absolutely, yes. So in this moment, feel your body. Be grateful for your 10 flexible fingers, because without your hands, how do you touch and feel? Without your eyes, how do you see? Without your ears, how do you hear? Without your arms, how do you hug? So that's the first thing about self-concept, because most of us don't have a healthy self-image at all. And I'm not even talking about from a woman's perspective, where we're looking at our bodies and going, oh my God, no, we've got too much there, too little there, whatever the case might be, right? I'm talking about how we really view ourselves from within. Do you see yourself as a gracious person? Do you see yourself as a generous person? Do you see yourself as being kind and compassionate? You see, most of us we overlook these things. And then I say, well, acknowledge that in yourself first. Because only when you start understanding that you are worthy of a hell of a lot more than mostly you allowing yourself to receive, that's the key, right? And I always say the Ankh is the key. You are the key. Your aura is shaped like the Ankh. Whether you call it your aura or your energy system that permeates out of your body, I don't know, but we cannot deny that we have an energy system. Of course, it's going to be shaped like the Ankh. Hello, head, arms, body. Hello, key. So what is that saying? It says you are the key that unlocks your inner wisdom, your inner knowledge, when you allow it, if you believe it. You see, but these are all about steps coming closer and closer to yourself or to God.
Yeah.
Because the closer you get to understanding you and loving you, that means you're that much closer to knowing God or your creator or your divine source. Because at the end of the day, God has created you in the image of God, in the image of the divine. And when you are separated from that, you don't know that. You don't know love. You don't know your potential. You don't know your joy. You don't know what you're capable of, because you are there and God is there. And you are not hearing God's voice. Do I look a bit like an Italian now? Was it a dead Italian, right? Something like that. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. It's just, gosh, it's just such a beautiful time, all this craziness is creating us to either, as Mr. Fox says, separate fourth density, positive or negative. We're either going to go into fear and into terrible things and whatever, and everyone hates me and the world is at war, and you're going to go there. But if you're choosing to see and transmute, and if you're choosing to see your pains as really something that is there to propel you forward, pain is not there to destroy you. It's there to take you to a deeper level of awareness. So when you can sit with that pain in the now, this moment, put away your social media, put away your phone, put away everything, and you just want to run away from yourself. You just want to smoke or drink or take a line of whatever. You cannot bear being close to you. That's the time you're closest to your breakthrough.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the time when you just say, okay, I promised myself I'm present for the next 10 minutes. You go make a cup of tea, you get a pen and paper, and you just write what you're feeling. Anger, hate, 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 hate. If that's all you write for 10 minutes, I don't care. Write it. That is the time you are closest to your breakthrough.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you are able to see that, you're either going to break through or you're going to break down. Break through.
Marnie Alton says that when you're on the precipice of change, the one thing you're going to want to do is pull back to what you know, but just keep going when you're at that precipice. And there's a really great, as you're saying this, Shanti, there's a great exercise that, again, Sri Swami Satchitananda talks about in reference to the Atman and to understanding this. And I'll just say it, just feeling inclined to say it. It's so simple just to start this. If somebody watching right now is like, whoa, this is really mind-blowing new information, a new perspective I never thought of before, something really simple you can do. Instead of like when you're hungry, instead of saying I'm hungry, say my body is hungry or my body feels tired. And so you're going to be able to take that perspective of the watcher, right? By just changing your vocabulary a little bit. You know, because I'm a Vata. I know that. I know Shanti's Vata. I'm sure Morné's got some Vata. And Vatas, we will go hours without eating. And then all of a sudden it's like hangry. Like you got to eat something. And so in that moment where you're like,
and if I go into a restaurant or to a shop where I'm trying to buy something and dare they make me wait 2 minutes longer.
Yes. So
you can see me tantrum like a 3-year-old.
Right. So in that moment where you're overwhelmed with this feeling, instead of reacting to your reaction, you're like, interesting, my body's really hungry right now. Or interesting, my mind is really impatient right now. So you can start to be in the essence of that watcher. And so when you become the essence of, I do that. And another great way to do that is through exercise, again, physical exercise. You know, when you're in the middle of a long run or you're, doing yoga, you're getting frustrated and you're like, oh, interesting. That posture really pisses my mind off, right? The Atman's just there to observe. And so you become the observer. And there's something really magical, as Shanti says, the more you're able to not react to your own reactions, and you can see that as something, as Ram Dass says, something interesting, like, oh, interesting that triggered my mind.
But you know what I do now is when I do something that I irritate myself or I get angry with, I for a minute imagine that I'm someone watching me.
Yes. Yeah, you're like, look at that weirdo.
Would I want to be acting? No. No. Don't want to be doing this right now.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. No, it's and you're right, how you speak to yourself. Like I wake up every morning and I tell myself, like, you're a cool you're the cool, you're really cool, Bryce, or you compliment yourself too in the process, instead of just identifying with all these negative things, it's all a perspective. And yeah, the more you can tap into that watcher, like somebody watching the shit show of your life, it's like they bought a ticket to the Hot Mess Express. At least that's my perspective. I have to
just share this. This is what Princess, just because I was actually thinking about that, and wow. If you take into account the rare earth elements that make up your physical being, you are worth $6.5 trillion. Spiritually, you are priceless. Keep that in mind.
That's amazing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So that is such a good analogy to use when you actually comparing apples to apples, right? If you want to put it that way. Because if you can think that your spirit is worth $6.5 trillion, and especially that's what the cabal has paid for you, right? My gosh, you got to ask yourself, why am I worth that much? Let me go and figure that out for myself, right?
Okay, you hit a good thing, Shanti. Listen, the cabal thinks you're priceless too. That's why they're doing all they're doing. They know you're special. So that's, be as special to yourself as you are to the cabal. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when we know this, we got to ask ourselves, why are they paying so much for us? And why are we worth that much for them? So if they can pay that price for me, wow, let me go and figure out what it is in me that they're paying for.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the 6.5 trillion earthly dollars worth in spiritual currency? Because that's unlimited, right? Spiritual currency is unlimited. That was cool, Prince. Thank you. Good info, good intel. That it's a very good analogy to use for yourself.
Yeah, just wake up every morning and be like, you know what? I'm kind of a big deal. I'm kind of a big deal. I mean, look at what you've done to try to distract you. So yeah, guys. And yeah, the Hot Mess Express, L4YLA. I thought about putting that on T-shirts. Welcome to the Hot Mess Express. Like nothing describes what's going on right now better than that. So we all bought it.
And it's true, Vera Marie, what you're saying here as well. And I'm sorry, I know we're over time. And by the way, before I forget, tune in 2 hours. I've got Asia Rain coming on. She was trafficked through the Mormon church.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very interesting and information coming up there. Anyway, Vera Marie, what you're saying is they know our worth, yet they try to make us forget it, so we willingly sell ourselves. If you watch my arrow drop that I did last week, Friday, when I spoke about the 21 lizards, I mentioned that there because what this guy was saying is that there's around 21 species of lizard reptilian entities just on this side of the galaxy. And what they do is when they take over other planets, they turn the inhabitants into slaves. Yep. But they've got to be fully functioning slaves because they want to make a profit. So what they do is, and through the gateway, the gateway experience we're talking about now with Jesse, okay, they use that as entry points, and they will then, through suggestion, either turn that into, what they've done is they've turned it into very nefarious manipulation. It's basically the basis of MK Ultra mind control, used in its negative polarity. People, please. I mean, I'm not going to say more about it now. We will get there. Okay, it's a process of unfolding. I know everyone's impatient when you talk about these things, but literally and what this guy is saying as well. And the one advantage, so what they do is they do everything they can because they're super intelligent, especially with AI and technology and stuff. They do whatever they can to dumb us down, like medical, like all the jabs and things we've been getting, media, blah, 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 over time, religion, always religion, right? So, but the one thing that we have that they don't have is consciousness. So as we elevate our consciousness, it's game over for them. So they are going to do whatever they can to try and dumb us down. And that's why when we start rediscovering the power, and that's what Prince was saying, that you are worth $6.5 trillion. Your spirit. Think about what that translates into. He's talking human, right? So think about what that translates into as spirit. It is unlimited. So that's what they're after. And that's what they want, because why do you think they're doing all this murdering and sucking and whatever? Anyway, we will have these discussions again. It's timely to have them. It's very timely to have them because there's a lot of shitty things coming up at the same time.
Yep.
We will definitely have more of these discussions because as we know God as we get to see God or ourselves in a brighter way. So we also get to see the other side in a more magnified way. Now the question is, what do we do with that? Are we going to elevate that? Are we going to fight with it? Are we going to whatever? Those are discussions we'll have in the future.
Absolutely. So
Okie dokie.
Tablet 8, the new tablet.
Yes,
Yay.
next week.
Yay.
Yay.
Look forward to that. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you, Bryce. Is there anything else you want to say? Morné, anything from you before we bid each other farewell for the moment?
I saw you posted the PDF in the comment section, Morné. Thank you. So for those who are
Yes.
in the comment section, if you guys want the translation of Doriel, and so you have this for I would highly suggest people getting it for yourself too, just reading it for yourself.
Yeah, it's nice to read it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Shanti, you said it very well because I wanted to talk about the now and everything. So you said it beautifully. So I just enjoyed this tablet a lot. So just go read it for yourself and make your own discernment, you know.
Be in the now, live every moment. Yeah, you know, it's the little things in life that it starts with being, if you can't be grateful for something right now, start by appreciating. If you can't be grateful because your body is 70 pounds overweight, then appreciate the fact that you have 10 toes. Appreciate that you have feet.
Yes.
So I'll
Appreciate that you have, you see, we got to think about how energy works, right? Okay. So your words, spellcasting, okay, along with your emotions as well. So we get taught we've got to be grateful for this, grateful, which is also, to me, it's a little bit of a not everyone can be grateful because I was abused by my aunt when I was 2. No. But what I can do is appreciate the lessons it taught me. It showed me compassion. It showed me how to work with abused children. It gave me that understanding. You see, therein lies the difference. So this is how we begin. Every day before you get up, before you move your head off that pillow, thank you, God, that I'm alive. Thank you, God, that I can breathe. Thank you for my pillow. Thank you for my fingers. And on that note, you get up and watch what's happening.
If you are 70 pounds overweight, I know that's stressful for people, but I'll give you something my teacher, David Grieg, used to say before I started going into the perception he had of this. You wake up every morning and you grab your belly or your thighs and you go, thank you, God, I have something to work with. I got something to work with. This is what I'm working with. All right. Yeah. Whenever, I'm telling you guys, whenever a skinny young girl came into the yoga shala, David wasn't too intrigued by them. But when an older man came in who had a belly and couldn't touch his toes, David would get so excited because now we have something to work with. Mm-hmm. See your resistance as something you get to, when you go to an exercise class and you tighten up the resistance, it's giving you something to work with. That's what you've been given to work with, and be grateful for it. It will start to change the way you see yourself. And when you start to see yourself in a different way, your body's going to shift.
So true. And it's like people who have scars. I have women who their breasts are no longer what they were when they were 25 or whatever. I'm going, okay, well, how many children did you breastfeed? 3. Okay, well, you breastfed your children. I've got all these stretch marks on my belly. Well, how many times were you pregnant? 2. Well, these are your badges of honor. My scar for this and my scar for that. Well, did it save your life? Yes, it did. Okay. Well, then let's look at that. We got to change perceptions on things. We've got to stop looking at the lack from something. We've got to start looking at something that doesn't serve us, because the more we focus on something that doesn't serve us, the more of that we create. Law of correspondence. It's simple. Try it.
Scars. I have
try it, guys. If you don't believe me, try it. Don't take my words in. Just try what I'm saying. If you wake up in the morning feeling appreciative, instead of trying to be grateful, the more you're trying to be grateful, the more negative resistance you're creating for something you definitely don't feel gratitude for. So leave it. Then appreciate that I've got 10 flexible toes. It might be something completely different. You might be having the bank foreclosing on you. I don't care. Leave it right now. Are your toes flexible? Yes. Do you have 10? Yes. Does it feel good to? Yes. Does it feel good to look at your cat? Yes. Then start focusing on the things that make you feel good. Doesn't matter what. Just do it. And on that note, I am going to say goodbye because
Beautiful
I
note.
have a show in half an hour or 40 minutes. And as you can see, my hair
I
has
know,
a
I'm
mind of its
beautiful.
own, a bit like me. I'm going to go make my hair pretty.
Oh, you're always beautiful.
Okay, guys, I want to say to you, okay, let's make it. What are you appreciating and what are you grateful for? I'm grateful for put it in the comment section. What the heck are you grateful for today? Start with
I'm
that.
grateful for you guys, for Morné and Chantelle and all of you guys
Yeah.
watching right now. Boom, right there. I'm grateful for you guys.
Exactly.
Well, I'm grateful to be on this journey with this whole world going through this
Yeah,
crazy
exactly.
stuff. And I appreciate that we're making strides, although it's not as fast as we would expect it, but we're making strides. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
we're perfectly on time. We're doing what we need to, and I'm very grateful to be sharing this platform with everyone. So God bless you all. Mwah. Thank you so much. So appreciate you. And again, our Patreons really appreciate you and those guys who donate. Honestly, thank you. And we will see you later with pretty hair. I promise. Okay, guys. Cherry Pies.
Bye.